whatever you do, do not buy this book unless it's for a review like this one. It's written by a person who is blatantly sexist. It's become so much more apparent in this book, possibly than ever before. It's written by an author who sets up these rules and then doesn't stick to them. It's written by someone who promises you gold and then gives you dirt. Take a look at this cover, for instance. What do you see here? You see the Queen of Hearts. Get this, the Queen of Hearts, the person on the cover, is barely in the book. She's only present for, I think, 2 chapters, maybe 3. The characters keep talking about the Queen of Hearts, but you never actually get to have fun with her madness. Alright, let me back up a little bit. If you never heard of the Twisted Tales, they're a series of books that take a Disney movie and say, what if this happened differently, and there's an alternate timeline with it. Usually that's what happened. This one, it doesn't really change the events of the movie. It's just a sequel to the movie, so it's not even doing what Twisted Tales are supposed to do. The premise is, what if Wonderland was in peril and Alice was very, very late? But it takes place years after Alice in Wonderland. I'm just going to have no restraint on spoilers because I'm demanding that you not read this book unless it's for a review. It keeps telling you to take the threats seriously, with the Queen of Hearts having so many executions and having the fate of Wonderland be in peril. And at the end of the book, I'm not kidding, the book ends with the world is about to reset and start another Wonderland with everybody coming back to life. And people might not remember everything that happens in Wonderland up until this point, regardless of whether the Queen of Hearts is beaten or not. So I just say, congratulations, Alice, you won. And the words "you won" are supposed to be what we've achieved from all this. So it basically tells you that this whole thing was pointless. The premise of what if Wonderland was in peril isn't even creative, but because it just goes with the same old Queen of Hearts is bad, we must dethrone Queen of Hearts. That's been done so many times with Alice in Wonderland before. And the author would have you believe that she does creative things with it, but everything it proclaims itself to be doing creatively is unused and inconsistent. For example, there's this part where Alice is trying to think of the people in her life from the real world. So the idea is, when she's in Wonderland, England is like a dream and it's hard for her to recall it. But whenever she feels like it, she can remember the names of people from England, and she can remember all this different stories from England. So it doesn't change the function at all. It's an effect without an effect. Another thing is, there's these real-world counterparts to the characters in Wonderland. So there's a England version of the Queen of Hearts, but she's inconsequential and only appears for 1 chapter. One thing this book does use Wonderland nonsense for is plot convenience. Because Alice can just wake up to get herself out of danger, she can just stumble upon characters she's been separated from. A character can suddenly be able to fly even though we've never seen them do that before, so that they can escape. And it tries to get away with that by saying, it's Wonderland, you're supposed to have nonsense. Well, the thing is, the original Alice in Wonderland, or Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, was written without a high-stakes plot, and it was just madness for the sake of madness, and that was okay because it wasn't like we were using cheap plot convenience to get through a plot that had stakes. And the problem is, this book told me that there were stakes. It has on the cover, what if Wonderland was in peril? It keeps talking about these executions and how scary the big bad Queen of Hearts is. It told me that I should take this seriously. It told me not to turn off my brain. And I don't know why Liz Broswell keeps writing these stories about heroes who have to save everybody from the villain, because she can't do action scenes, and she can't write characters to be smart. The climax of the book is Alice is trying to stop the White Rabbit from turning a hand on a clock to end time. Using the magic pocket watch, she's able to have infinite retries, and it takes her dozens of retries before she realizes that she should run to the clock instead of trying to catch the rabbit. And I thought of doing that a while ago. I don't know why it took her so long to realize she should go straight for the clock rather than trying to catch the White Rabbit. I know it might seem heavy to call an author sexist, but listen to this. Just listen to this. Where is it? It says, quote, "Normally she either avoided the young men pushed on her by her sister or quickly forgot the ones she somehow met herself. Most were dull and unlikely to be found in this forgotten square." End quote. So basically she called most young men dull. And then right here, quote, "He had no obvious machismo nor any desire to be a hero if it was uncalled for, only when it was needed. Alice rather appreciated that it was so contrary to all the men and boys she had known." These generalizations that include the words most and all are not the words of someone who thinks men and women are equal. And yet this book would have you believe that it's some kind of champion of equality by bringing up issues that no longer exist, like the inability of women to vote in England. I've said this so many times before, and I'll say it so many more times to come. If you're interested in reading the twisted tales from Disney, I'll make it simple for you. If it's written by Liz Broswell, it's horrible and not worth your time or money. If it's written by anyone else, it might be acceptable. Alice has a love interest in this book. She keeps calling him Mr. Katz. I forget his first name. It's basically they complain about how oppressive society is with their problems that don't exist in modern day England. And they apologize about their respective privileges. He's a second generation immigrant, and thus he's oppressed, and thus he's not like all other / most other men she's ever met in her entire life. After 2 minutes of knowing her, he calls her the most interesting person he knows or something. I forget the exact wording. He calls her something like the most interesting person around there or something after 2 minutes-ish of not very interesting stuff. That previous part of the video you just watched was actually recorded a long time ago. I thought that the video needed a little extra something. For a bit, I was thinking, I'm not going to do what I'm about to say, so don't get excited. At first I was thinking I would watch Alice in Wonderland's the animated movie and make jokes on it here and there to do sort of a palate cleanse after suffering through Unbirthday. Instead, I'll just say, if you haven't seen Disney's Alice in Wonderland's the animated one, not the live-action one. If you haven't seen the animated Disney's Alice in Wonderland, you should. It's really fun. It's really funny. It's such a great time. But I thought of something else to add to this video. In my videos reviewing Liz Broswell's books, I've been calling her blatantly sexist, and she is. She's definitely very sexist. I thought about how people reacted to the J.K. Rowling controversy, and I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. My worst enemy, of course, being Liz Broswell. So I want to say things like, if someone in your life likes Liz Broswell's books, don't declare them your enemy over it. There's been people out there who have been removing friends from their lives because they like Harry Potter, and that's not something I want to advocate for the twisted tales written by Liz Broswell. I don't think Liz Broswell is good enough to have fans, but she apparently does have some fans out there. But I'm sure some of them like her books in spite of the fact that she's so sexist and not because of it. And I also wanted to say that if Liz Broswell is going to change her ways, it won't be because of people throwing profanities at her on social media. As much as I wish that Liz Broswell would never write another Twisted Tale again and they would hire better authors to write better Twisted Tales in her place, I'm not going to be angry with people if they say they understand my criticisms but enjoy her books anyway. So you might be wondering, hypothetically, if Liz Broswell were to stop being so sexist. I don't have reason to believe she will, at least not that I've seen, but hypothetically, if she were to stop being so sexist, would I want her to keep writing Twisted Tales? Well, honestly, still no, because even forgetting how sexist her books are, she's just not a good author. Her characters are unlikable, the world building doesn't work, her plot progression is repetitive, she takes characters that are supposed to be funny and makes them unfunny, and her storylines just aren't interesting. But hypothetically, it's never good. The odds of this happening are very, very slim, but hypothetically, if Liz Broswell were to both stop being sexist and magically become a much better author who writes really good books, then I would change my tune about her. To dare is human, to forgive and forget, as they say, or they used to say. I've also been thinking that I don't want to just make book reviews where all I do is rant about how much I hate stuff, so I want to leave you on the note of, I've told you what not to read, now I'm going to tell you what to read. You've probably heard me gush about this book a lot in other videos, Prince of Song and Sea. The main character of this book is a strong male character, and her female characters are better strong female characters than the ones in Liz Broswell's books. In the first chapter, right after the overture, as it calls it, he loses a sword fight to a woman, but then that woman says, actually, you're great at sword fighting. The only reason I could beat you is because I fight dirty and you don't. And he does participate in action scenes really well. In fact, they both participate in action scenes really well. Him and that other woman, I forget her name, Gabriella. It's been a while since I read this book, sorry. I also have here Bravely. This is a sequel to Pixar's Brave. It doesn't have as much action as I was hoping for. In fact, it doesn't have much action at all, but I really liked its dynamic between Merida and this other character, Faradach. It really utilizes Merida and her family a lot better than the movie did, in my opinion. I also kind of recommend Almost There. This is a Twisted Tale, but it's not written by Liz Broswell. It's written by Farah Rashan. Unlike the other two, this isn't as much of a wholehearted recommendation. I have a whole video about this book where I elaborate more. The short version is, there's a few pages that I found questionable and it's a bit anticlimactic, but it has some good stuff in here. So remember to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, and read better books than Unbirthday.